Hello everyone and welcome to another video on Python programming. In this video we will be learning about the concept of regular expressions. Now a regular expression is simply a sequence of characters that defines a search pattern. For example, if you see this example here, you can see a symbol called the caret followed by P and then 5 periods, then an N and a $sign. And what this regex pattern does is it's searching for a 7-letter string that starts with P, ends with N and has 5 characters in between. Let's look at this example now. This is a regex pattern that is looking for a 5-character string that starts with A, ends with S and has 3 characters in between. Now if we had to match this with this string, with these strings as our test strings, the first one would not match because it's a 3-letter string and we're looking for a 5-character string. The second one would match because it's a 5-character string that ends with an S, starts with an A and has 3 characters in between. This will not match because what our pattern would do is it would find the first S and it would find that the string itself starts with an A, and it would say, okay, there are only 2 characters between this first S and this A, and it would assume that this is actually just a 4-character string. To actually identify 2 consecutive S's, we would have to do something special, and what we would have to do is what we will see later on. So again, this is the same example. Since this is case insensitive, capital A is perfectly fine when we're searching for this, and it will also match. This is obviously 2 words and it's not a 5-character string, so this will not be a match. Now the regex pattern or the regular expression module in Python can be imported using this statement, import re. Now once we've done this, we can actually use our regular expression tools and methods to do pattern recognition, character recognitions, and to identify different sequence of characters in our strings. Let's try to understand a bit more in depth about regular expressions now. So what you're seeing here is one variable called pattern which stores something that looks like a regex, and another variable that stores our test string called abis. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the match method of this module re, and we're going to check whether this pattern or whatever we are trying to search using this regex is in fact, does it match with our test string. And what we're trying to look for is, if you see here, very similar to what I just showed you, a 5-character string that starts with A and ends with S. So if you see our test string, it indeed is a match, and when we use this this command, we should get a perfect match. So we should basically it should say that search is successful if I execute this, and this is what it does. Now if I change the test string to this now, you will see that now this is no longer what we are looking for, a 5-character string with A and starting with A and ending with S, and you will see that the search will be unsuccessful, as you can see here. Now let's try to understand what exactly do we mean by when we use these special symbols, like for example this caret or this dollar symbol. These are, by the way, known as meta characters, and now we're going to look into all the or most of the different meta characters that are used in regex. So to put it simply, meta characters are simply characters that are interpreted in a special way by the regex search engine. Now here's a list of meta characters. Let's go through them one by one. Now the square brackets. Square brackets simply specifies the set of characters that we wish to match. So we want to match some combination of A, B and C. It can be 1 A, 2 A's, 3 B's, 4 C's. We are not looking at a specific pattern. We just want to know if A, B and C exists in any form in our string. So if we used it on A, the string A simply, we would find one match because the letter A is found here. AC would match twice because we have A and C present here. In this string, Hey Jude, we will have no matches because A, B and C, none of them are found here. And in this weird string, we will have actually 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 matches. So we would have 5 matches for this this bigger string because we have 5 instances of A, B or C. Now let's use re.match to actually search for this and to see if we have our particular whatever patterns that we're looking for. Now in this input string, this is just some example string. I'm going to test this. I'm going to match whether my pattern that any of A, B and C, is it actually found in this. So let's see what happens when I use re.match for this. So the format, the syntax is simply the regex pattern and then comma, whatever test string that we have. So let's see what object gets created when we try to do this. As you can see, it's none. Even though you might be wondering, like I can see an A over here, I can see a C over here. re.match actually gives us the result none. Now, if I try to do it on this test string, which is slightly different, instead of the film Titanic was released in 1998, what I'm saying here is all film Titanic was released in 1998. Now let's see if the R match works or not. As you can see, it actually does return. When I execute this, it returns us an object called re.match object with a span 01. The span 01 is basically telling us that we have found a match between the 0th and the first character, which is basically this character A, which is what it has found. And it's saying that the match is indeed the character A from amongst these options. So what this is basically telling us, and what this means actually, is that the re.match method will only find matches if they occur at the start of the string being searched. Once there is a space in our bigger string, it will not search for whatever comes after it. So what happened in the first instance was, it was actually only searching for matches in this particular word in my larger string. And since it found no match, it basically gave us the result none, which was not the case in the second example because it found a match immediately in the first letter A. Now, if we want to actually check the whole thing, what we would be using is the re.search. As you can see here, the re.search method will actually check the whole string, and it will return us the first instance where it finds a match. Now let's see, this is the test string now, and we're searching again for we're searching for A, B, and C, any of these in our test string, but we're going to use re.search and not match. So now if you see, it returns us, when I execute this, it returns us a match object again, but this time it's saying the span of 9 and 10. Now the span of 9 and 10 actually exists over here. This is the 9th character and A itself is the 10th character over here. So what this basically is telling us, that the 10th character is where we found a match, which was the letter A, which was the first instance of either A or B or C in this whole string. And this is basically how re.search works. It will not only search the beginning of the string, but it will search the whole string and return us the first instance of wherever we find. Now what if we wanted to find out all the instances wherever A, B, and C were found and not just the first instance? Well, in that case, we would be using the method findAll over here. So when we use findAll, it will actually return us each and every case where it found A, B, or C. And you might not, it won't tell you the exact position, but it will tell you like, so if I execute this, you can see it gives us a list with A, C, A, and A. And what this basically means is it was looking for the characters A or B or C, and it found A first, and hence this for the first item in the list. And then it found a C, and then it found two A's successively. So this is actually how findAll works, where it will actually find all of the instances of our regex pattern. Now that you've seen how the square brackets work and how the re.search and re.match and re.findAll methods work, now we're going to go through all the other meta characters that we saw above. So the period. Now period matches any single character except the new line. New line is basically /n or a break. Now if you look at this picture, what it's going to do is this expression basically saying that do we have two characters, like sets of two characters in our string. So this is a single character string, and obviously a single character string is not a double character string. And this expression, this double dot, is basically asking us, do we have two characters present in our string? So if I had to match it with this A, it will obviously be a no match because A is one character. If we checked it with AC, it is a match because A and C are two characters. A, C, and D will also give us only one match because it will find A, C, and then it will leave D as a single character. But when we check A, C, D, and E, or this string in particular, it will find two matches because it will consider A and C as one of the matches and D and E as one of the matches. So below is basically what we're doing. Basically the same thing, we're just using re.search for each of these different examples. So if you see, when I use findAll on A, C, D, E, and when I'm searching for a two character match, you will see that it will return me A, C, and D, E, as you can see here. And similarly for something like this, it will return me again whatever like two character patterns it finds successively. So the next symbol, the next meta character, is the caret symbol that you've seen earlier. And the caret symbol is basically used to check if a string starts with a certain character. So if you look at this picture, we have two expressions that we're going to check over here. One is one is checking if A is the beginning of a string, and the other one will check if A is the beginning of the string, but is it followed by B or not. So when we check this, what you can see is the first string will be a match because it's only the character A, and it will match here as well because this string starts with A, but it will not match here because this string starts with B. Now if I look at this particular expression, you can see that this is going to search for if the string starts with A and is followed by a B. So it will match in this case because it does start with A and is followed by a B, but it will not match in this case even though it starts with an A because it's not followed by a B. So out here is basically us using the re.search to basically find these patterns. The next symbol that we will come across is the dollar symbol. So the dollar symbol that you can see here is used to check if a string ends with a certain character, and we have already seen how this is used in one of the earlier examples. So this is going to check basically this expression will check if the string ends with A. So this string is basically the character A, so it will match. This also ends with A, so it will match. And this particular string does not end with A, so it will not match. And we are going to do that using the re.search over here. So as you can see, it finds a match in the first character itself here. In this case, it finds a match in the last character, but in CAB, there is no match, so it returns us a none. Another example is of the meta characters is star. So this is the symbol for star, and what the star basically is used is for checking if there are 0 or more occurrences of the pattern to the left of it. So now if you see here, what this will check for is there any form of M and A that occurs before N? And it's very important to note that the N has to follow the A in this case. So let's look at these examples and what will happen. So if I checked it with M and N, this is actually a match because N is followed by 0 occurrences of M and A, which is, it might seem a little weird, but it is technically the truth, because the star symbol doesn't check for the existence, it just checks for if N occurs, it must occur after an A, or the A should not be there itself in this particular string. So as you can see here, the N occurs after an M, and it's fine because there is no A. Now you will see when it will not work. So M, A and N is obviously fine. M triple A N is also fine because N follows an A and there's an M here. This, however, main will not match. Now why? Even though we have M and A and we have an N, you see the N is immediately followed by an I. N follows an I immediately, or the N is preceded by an I immediately. And this is a no match because the strict condition in the search is that N must precede an A if the A exists. Again, in woman it will match because N follows an A over here. We're just going to use the re.search for these examples that we saw over here in terms of code using the re.search, as you can see here. Finally, we have the next meta character, which is the plus symbol. Yes. So the plus symbol matches one or more occurrences of the pattern left to it. Now this is very similar to what we saw earlier in terms of the star, except now in the plus, the key difference is we're looking for one or more occurrences instead of 0 or more occurrences that we were looking for in the case of star. So when we say one or more occurrences, now we need what is there to the left of the plus sign. A 0, no occurrence of it will not be allowed or will not cause a match. So let's see now what we're going to do here. We're going to use the same expression, except we're going to replace the star with the plus sign. So now what we're going to say is, okay, we need M and A, at least one occurrence followed by an N. All of these conditions have to be met. So again, if we took the first example, M and N, this time it will be a no match because there is no occurrence of an A over here for preceding the N. So it's a no match. M, A and N is a match because, well, this is perfectly fine. M, triple A and N is also perfectly fine. But if you look at M, A, I and N, much like earlier, the N is preceded by an I and not an A, so there is no match. And again, woman is perfectly fine. And we basically execute the same thing through the search function in this piece of code. The next meta character is the question mark. The question mark symbol matches 0 or 1 occurrences of the pattern to the left of it. So let's see what this does. So now we saw the star which was 0 or more occurrences of the pattern to the left of it. We saw the plus, which is 1 or more occurrences of the pattern to the left of it. Now we will see the question mark, which is 0 or 1, only 0 or only 1, and not 0 or more or 1 or more, which was the previous cases. Only 0 and 1 or 1 occurrences of the pattern to the left of it. Again, we're going to see the same expression, except we're going to replace the meta character with the question mark. So now let's see what happens when we match. So if you see here, M and N is a match because there is 0 occurrence of A and 1 occurrence of M preceding N. So this is fine. This is also fine because there is 1 occurrence of A and M, and then it's followed by an N. This will not be fine because now we have 3 occurrences of A, which is followed by an N. We're only looking for 0 or 1. This again, main will be a no match for the same reasons that we have already gone through, and woman will be a match again for the same reasons. And we do the same thing using the search function in this piece of code. The next meta character is the braces character. Now the braces character is interesting because what we're going to do is we're going to see if there are, the typical syntax for a braces is n brace followed by some integer n, comma, integer m, and then close braces. So what this means is we're looking for at least n and at most m repetitions of the pattern left of the braces. Let's see through an example. If you see this expression, we're looking for at least 2 and at most 3 occurrences of the character A in our test strings. So let's see what happens in the first case. We have no matches in this case because this part of the string contains only one A, and even this part of the string only contains one A. We're looking for at least 2 and at most 3. This part will contain one match, the second example, because the second part of the string actually contains 2 A's for two repetitions of A's consecutively. But this in the third example, you can see both the strings actually contain matches, so we get 2 matches because, as you can see here, there's 2 A's here followed by 3 A's here. Now when we look at this particular string, let's look at what happens now. So what we're going to find is that this thing is perfectly fine. So we have 2 occurrences of A, but now we have 4 occurrences of A. But what the search engine is going to recognize is these first 3 A's, and it's going to see, okay, so there are 3 occurrences of A and I already have a match. It's not going to consider this 4th A in the search. It will just look at the first 3 and it say, okay, there are 3 A's and my match is fine. So again, there are 2 matches in this case. Again, we're going to use the search function initially, and you can see in each of the cases there is a match except for the first case, which is this case. Now let's see the find all option and see what happens when we do the same thing using find all. So when we use find all, it basically gives us each of the instances where the match has occurred in each of these lists. Now let's try to use a slightly more complicated example where we combine different meta characters and we create a more sophisticated expression that we want to search in our test strings. So if you look at this expression, what we're looking for is 0-9. Now a dash symbol is valid in Python using regex because what this basically tells it is that it's looking for either 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on until 9. Basically any of the digits. We're looking for any of the digits from 0 to 9. And we are going to check if at least 2 and at most 4 occurrences of digits, if they are there or not in our particular code. So let's see what are the matches that happens when we use it on test strings. So if you use it on this string, you can see it will find one match. This particular part of the string where it says 1, 2, 3. So this is 3 occurrences of digits, so it's fine. Now when we look at this whole string, 12 and whatever this is, you will see this will not find a match here. This obviously will not because these are characters. But if you look at this part, it will find matches in terms of the first 4 and then 7 and 3, the next 2. 1 and 2 again, there are no matches because there's only single occurrences of digits. We're looking for at least 2 and at most 4. So if I use a find all, you will see like what all it will return. So for the first test string, what it's going to return me is, it's going to return me 1, 2 and 3 as you can see here. But now if you look at this test string, it's going to return me 12. It's going to return me 3, 4, 5 and 6. It's going to return me 3, 4, 1 and 2, but not 7 because we're looking for at least 2. And then it's going to return me 4, 5, 6 and 7 followed by 8 and 8 as you can see in this list over here. Now if we use curly braces with only one digit, it's basically telling the search engine that we want exactly so many repetitions of the preceding whatever expression that we have. So when we do this example, for example, we are basically saying that we want x followed by a dash, and the dash has to occur at least 3 times in our particular expression, and then it should be followed by an x again, which will not match in this case because there are only 2 dashes, and it will match in this case because there are exactly 3 dashes, and it will again not match in this case because there are 4 dashes. As you can see here, none followed by an object match followed by none. Next we move on to the alternation meta character. And as the word suggests, alternation is basically looking for some alternate form of A and B. So A should be followed by B, and basically this pattern has to keep going on. So in the first string over here, this pattern will not match. In the second string over here, we will have a match because we at least find an A, even though there is no B. But this is still considered a match because we did find an A at least. Over here we'll have 3 matches because we have A followed by a B followed by an A again. So if we did a regex expression for this, we would basically find these many matches for each of these examples. The next meta character is the group. Now a parenthesis is basically used to group subpatterns. So let's look at an example to understand what we mean. Now if you look at this complicated expression, what this means is that I want some form of x and z. The x and z have to occur together. But before that, what I want is some form of A following B following C. Some sort of alternation between A, B and C. So this part, as you can see here, is kept in a parenthesis because I want this whole condition to basically occur before I find an x and z. So let's look at what happens here. In the first case, we don't have a match because this parenthesis condition is not being met. X and z is preceded by a space, or basically the A and B is followed by a space. So if the space didn't occur, we would actually find a match, as you can see in the next example. Here you can see A and B occur. Basically this initial condition is met, followed by x and z. So there is one match. So it's fine for us. Now if you look at this slightly more trickier one, what you can see is we have 2 matches in this case. First an A followed by x and z, and then we have C, A and B. Now this is perfectly fine because we are looking for a B followed by an x and z. We're looking for either of these things. We're looking for some form of alternation of these things followed by an x and z. And we can get that over here. We get B followed by an x and z. So you'll get 2 matches in this case. Now let's go through the concept of grouping constructs. Now that you've seen many meta characters, you've seen how parenthesis works. Let's look at grouping constructs. So grouping constructs break up a regex in Python into sub-expressions or groups. And this serves 2 purposes. One is the grouping part, which basically says that a group represents a single syntactic entity. And any additional meta characters apply to the entire group as a unit. And then there's the capturing part, which basically tells us that some grouping constructs also capture the portion of the search string that matches the sub-expression in the group. And you can retrieve captured matches later through several different mechanisms. So let's look at basically what we mean by this example over here. So if you see this expression has a plus sign. So we're looking for, as you know, a plus looks for one or more occurrence. So this will basically check for one or more occurrence of the character R only, because there's no parenthesis as in this example. So this plus is next to an R, and it's going to check for basically whether one or more occurrence of R happens preceding B and A. But if we actually put B, A and R in a parenthesis followed by plus, it will actually check for the entire string BAR, and it will check one or more occurrences of BAR together. So if you look at these 2 examples, when we use this on these examples, you can see that these are fine, like these matches are fine. But if I used this parenthesis, then these would be the acceptable matches. And like BA triple R would not be a match if I use parenthesis, as you can see here. So this is how grouping constructs work and how parentheses work. So look at some other examples. So what this will do is FOO has to be optionally followed by BAR, and BAR must exist together. And this is because we have a question mark here. This question mark symbol tells us that there should be 0 or 1 occurrences. Similarly, this particular complicated expression is checking for one or more occurrences of whatever we saw earlier. Basically, this whole thing is followed by a plus. So we're looking for this whole sequence for one or more occurrences of it. COW is simply just COW. We're looking for this pattern. And this is going to check for 0 or 1 occurrence of COW because of the existence of the question mark preceded by the parenthesis.
If getting your learning started is half the battle, what if you could do that for free? Visit SkillUp by Simplilearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
Now that you know the basics of regular expressions, let's continue our discussion with special sequences. Now, in an earlier video on strings, you might have encountered what is an escape sequence and how we use the backslash character to generate these escape sequences. And an escape sequence is basically, if you remember, something that we use to either give a certain special meaning to characters that are otherwise ordinary, or it is used to remove the special meaning that are inherently present in certain characters that we call meta characters. So let's look at what special sequences are in relation to regular expressions. So the first one we're going to look at is the backslash capital A, which is used to match if specified characters are present at the start of a string. So out here, if you can see, we are checking if the word the is present in these two strings. So we would get a match in the first case over here because this starts with the word the, but in the second case we won't get a match. And this is how we're going to check it for the same thing using the findAll function. So if you see in the first case, it returns us an object because we do find the in the beginning of the string. In the second case, we get us empty list because this string does not start with the word the. Now the next one that we'll look at is backslash b, small b. Now this is used to match if specified characters are at the beginning or at the end of a word. So when you use backslash small b and then you follow it up with whatever you're looking for, it would look for those particular characters or that pattern if it exists in the beginning of a word in a string. So if you look at the first example, it starts with FOO. And in the second example, you see this portion of the string or this word is actually also starting with FOO. So it will also match. However, in this string, which is very similar to the second one, we don't have a space between A and F, and it's basically one word. So this does not start with FOO, but it actually starts with AFO, and it won't match, as you can see here. Now similarly, if we wanted to check if something exists in the back of a string, at the end of a string, we type what we want to search for first, and then we follow it with a backslash small b. And then if you see here, it will match in this first case, it will match in the second case because this part of the string ends with FOO, but it will not match in this case because, well, we removed the space, so now this whole thing becomes the string that we're looking for, and it does not end with FOO anymore. And this is basically us just checking it through the findAll function. Now the next special sequence that we will be looking at is the slash capital B, which is basically the opposite of what we just saw. This matches only if the specified characters are not at the beginning or the end of a word. So if you see here, this is checking if FOO is not at the beginning of these strings. So in this case, there will be a no match. In this case also, there will be a no match. And this third case, there will be a match. Similarly, if we wanted to see if something does not end with a particular string, we would type that whatever pattern we're looking for, followed by a backslash capital B. And then we can use the findAll function to generate us lists wherever we find such objects, find such matches in our particular test strings, like we have done over here. So the next one that we're going to look at is the backslash small d. And this matches any decimal digit, which is equivalent to doing a square brackets 0-9. As you must have seen earlier. So if we did a square bracket 0-9 and if we did a search or a findAll or a match, it would look for any of the digits between 0 and 9. So a similar thing can be done using a special sequence backslash small d. So as you can see, there will be 3 matches in this case because 1, 2 and 3 digits exist. Whereas in this case, for the word Python, there will be no matches. So these are certain examples where we are doing the same thing using the backslash d. Now we have another one, which is the backslash capital D, and this is just basically the opposite. It matches for any non-decimal digits. It's also equivalent to typing a caret inside square brackets with 0-9, which if you remember from the previous video, is basically asking us to check for anything that is not the digits 0 to 9. So this is basically, we're going to check in these two strings if there is no digits, no non-decimal digits. So if you see here, we will find 3 matches, A, B, and the double inverted commas. And in the second string, we will find no matches because this is fully just digits. Next, we have backslash small s. Now this matches where a string contains any white space character. So this is equivalent to doing a check for all of these. So this is like backslash small t is a check for tab space, backslash small n is a check for break line, and then backslash r, backslash f, backslash v are their own checks for different sorts of white space characters that you can see by just looking it up, honestly. But yeah, so if you simply do a \s, it would actually be the equivalent of searching for any of these white space characters that we generate. So if you see here, when we do a \s on this string, you can see that there is one space over here. So it will give us one match because there is one white space, which is just the normal space here. And in the second example, there is no match because there is no white space here. Similarly, /S now, as you might have noticed, is basically checking for a string which does not matches in a string wherever there is no white space characters. So it's basically the same as doing *t/n/r/f/v in a square brackets. So this is basically a simpler way of doing the same thing using square brackets and a caret symbol. So if you see this expression, \S, now we're looking at A space B. So over here, if you see, it will match for all the non-spaces. So it's going to match for A and B. So we're going to get two matches here. Whereas an empty string does not contain, well, it does not contain any non-white space character, since an empty string is basically a white space character on its own. So this will give us a no match. So the next special sequence that we're going to look at is the \w. This matches any alphanumeric character, which is the equivalent of doing A to Z in small and then capital A to Z, and 0 to 9 and also an underscore check in square brackets. It's important to note that the underscore is considered an alphanumeric character, hence why we include it over here. But yeah, this is the \w, small w, which basically checks for any alphanumeric character and matches it in a string. So if you see in this first case, it will find 3 matches at 1, 2, and also at the letter C. These others are not alphanumeric characters. Whereas in this string, none of these are alphanumeric characters, so we will get no match. Again, much like the other examples, there's a \W, which will check for any non-alphanumeric character, and it's the equivalent of doing whatever we did before in the square brackets, just with preceded by a caret sign. So if you see here, we have this string where we have a bunch of characters. Well, yeah, only one of them, this percentage symbol, is a non-alphanumeric character. So we will get one match over here. But in this case, in this string Python, we will get no matches because they are all alphanumeric characters. We're just doing the same thing here with a bunch of different examples using the findAll function. Now the \Z matches if the specified characters are at the end of a string. Now don't confuse this with small b, because the small b checks for a string and it checks each and every word in the string individually and checks if any of the words ends with a particular thing or starts with a particular thing, but it checks each word individually. But in this case, the \Z will check the string only and not each word. So if you see the difference here, when you use \Z, it will match in this first example, but it won't match for the next two. But if you used \small b over here, it would actually match not only in the first example here, but it will also match in the second example, because it would check this word individually and it will find out that, yeah, there is a match here as well. So it would actually match in the second example as well. So yeah, this was it on regular expressions. And with this, we will conclude our discussion on regular expressions. I hope you learned something from this video. And as always, do like and subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends so we can reach more learners such as yourself. Once again, thank you, and I hope to see you again in the next video.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.